Hey everybody, Sean here. I'm with my buddy Travis Adams. We're going to be talking about investing with kids is really the main topic. We're going to be touching on things such as the four quadrants of life and why they matter. That's really important to pay attention to. Number two, this is a fun one. It's how to close the bank of mom and dad by age 18. I know there are parents that are like my 23-year-old is still in the bank of mom and dad. So Travis will touch on that. And then this is the big one we're driving towards, which is how children and parents can invest together. So Travis is really going to be taking lead here. And then I may come in with some Q&A along the way. We'll have a good discussion. And of course, this being recorded, we're going to have this uploaded to YouTube. So with that intro being said, I'll turn it over to you, Travis. So why don't you kick us off here? And first things first, maybe give us a little context on your background so the audience knows who you are, what have you done before, and then we'll dive into the good stuff here.
Yeah, so I'm Travis Adams. My wife's Mandy, amazing wife. We have four kids in Wilmington, North Carolina, 10, 8, 5, and 2. So it is rowdy at our household. I'm going to get to share a story later today about investing with my oldest two boys, 10 and 8. So in 2010, I started a company with a good friend of mine from business school called Apex Leadership Co. That company eventually served over 7 million kids. We were started in Texas and Arizona, and then we franchised all over the U.S. But basically, what we do is go into schools and raise five times the amount of money for the school, and on top of that, teach leadership and have a ton of fun. Kind of turn it into summer camp. And a lot of parents, y'all may have done Apex Fun Run before. So Scott and I started that. And then in 2020, we started what is now Dinner Table. And Dinner Table is all about helping parents and grandparents and families create more value. And we don't, it's material value, but it's also emotional and spiritual. So when we talk about investing, like you actually can't invest a dollar until you've actually created value, you know, to actually go invest that dollar. So we start with value creation first. Hold on a second, Jim.
Sure.
Okay, can you hear me?
I gotcha. Loud and clear.
Okay, so we start with creating value first. And for families, I mean, parents, the biggest problem is I don't have a roadmap for money because my parents never taught me. Or it's, we didn't talk about money at all as parents and families. So we give parents a roadmap to pass on the value of dollar, close the bank of mom and dad by 18, or we have some families do it at 16, which is crazy. And here's the thing about that too, Sean, is, like you mentioned, whether you like it or not, the bank is open.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the longer it goes, it's not just money out of your pocket and your savings and your retirement. It's actually a lot of other bad things that we don't want to happen. So, um, anyways, that's what we do. We work with families. We work in I personally work with high net worth families as well. I have a dad's group, and it's a ton of fun because every family has this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you dive right into the four quadrants? Kind of start at high level. What are they? And then let's drill into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, just to kind of give people a roadmap, my goal, our goal today is to have a clear understanding of like what opportunity our kids are missing, which we'll get into it with Sean in the quadrants. Why is it important? Which is the making mom and dad. And three, how do we begin investing with our kids today? Because they're all connected. So let me share my screen. And then,
Mhm.
by the way, if you want this, I posted this in the chat so you can pull this up as well. Um, and one of my good friends and mentors and coaches, a guy named Gary Woolman, actually showed this to me in the last year. But looking at the four quadrants of life, like this is traditionally kind of how we do things. So 0 to 20, you're learning, you're just kind of in the textbooks traditionally. Then it goes to figuring it out, 20 to 40, what I want to do with my life. And then hopefully that leads to higher earning years, which then leads to retirement. And so, why does it matter if my kids start investing today or not? Well, most of us know who Warren Buffett is. And obviously time is a huge component of his investment strategy. So imagine a world where your kids or grandkids actually start investing and learning about what we call the millionaire mountain at age 6 or 7 or 8, right? Um, they start to their own business as a 10-year-old and start creating a value based on their passion as a 12-year-old, right? So by the time they're 20, they gain back a whole quadrant of earning. Um, and then obviously we know what compound interest is. I don't know, Sean, if you did a spreadsheet on this, but like if I started investing, let's just say as an 8 or 10-year-old versus a 30 or 40-year-old, and I'm getting 15 to 25% a year by using Tykr, like what's the dollar difference? Did you do that?
Yeah, let me show you here. So, yeah, can you see my screen okay, Travis?
Yeah, I can see your face. I can't see, it's not sharing right now.
Okay, let's try that again.
And by the way, if you're on this call and in the chat, if you could just put where you're from and your family and the age of your kids or grandkids, it'd be great just to know who we're with today as well.
All right. How about now?
Yep.
You can see that Excel sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of numbers, all jumping out at you. We'll keep this really simple for you guys. So what Travis is referring to is this is a compound interest calculator. I've got this in Google Sheets. If you're interested, you can go to our Tykr platform here. It's just the free side of it. You go to tykr.com, go to education, and then go to downloads. And there's a bunch of Excel sheets here. One of them Travis is referring to here is the compound interest calculator. You can play with, that's the Excel version. But this is a really cool comparison on compound interest over time. It's 10 years. I'll just kind of break down things at a high level and then we'll go from there. So it's 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, what Travis was talking about. And then your rate of returns here, 1% kind of simulates the like your savings account. In my case, my savings account is like 0.01, but we'll just round it up to one. Then you have your average returns in the S&P 500 actually over the last 10 years are closer to 10%. And then in Tykr, we try to aim for, 15% we'll put here. And then let's say it's, in Tykr, we try to set expectations. You should be aiming, if you're investing in between 10 and 15 strong stocks and doing that month over month and year over year, you should be getting 15 to 50% on average. Phil Town teaches you should be getting over 15. And even Warren Buffett says, if he were doing it, he could get 50%. So it's like, okay, so that's a pretty reasonable range to aim for. We won't spend too much time here, but let's say your average salary, here's the inputs. Average salary in the US as of 2023, I think was about $50,000. So we'll just keep that based on 2024. Annual contribution, that's how much you're putting into the market. So you take 10%. That number here that's just the output. That means you're putting in 5,000 a year and your starting amount is 1,000. Let's just say let's dial that up. Let's say you start with 10,000 in your investment account. Let's see what the numbers look like. So you can see here at 1% in 10 years, it's 63,000. 10%, it's 105. 15%, 141. And look at that, at 25%, 259. Now numbers get really fun. Go 20 years out. Imagine if you were 15 years old and you get to age 35 and you were able to start putting some money away. Maybe it's not this amount, but maybe some amount. This is where things get really exciting. So in 20 years, it's 122,000. At 10%, let's say you invest in the S&P 500, it's 353. Look at this. At 15%, it's 675. And then look at that. At 25%, 2.5 million. That's crazy.
Wow.
And then going out 30 years just for fun at 1%, 187, you're not going to retire on 187,000 in 30 years. S&P 500, this is why there's so many quote unquote 401k millionaires because they've been working for large corporations since age 25. Absolutely, you can be a millionaire that way. They're just taking a percentage of your paycheck, putting into a bundle of stocks, essentially equivalent to the S&P 500. And there you go. By age 65, you can become a millionaire. So we're at 996 there. Look at this. At 15%, you're at 2.8 and compound interest at 25%, you're at 24.2 million. And is that out of the realm of possibilities? The answer I will say is absolutely not. You guys maybe heard me talk about this. I'll go down here, S&P 500, Ronald Reed. This is a janitor. He built up a net worth of, well, I got an ad blocker here, but I'll stop sharing. I'll speak to him. You can look him up. Ronald Reed, janitor, making minimum wage. He built up a portfolio of $8 million. How did he do it? Owning 10 to 15 strong stocks. I think through like the 70s, 80s and 90s, he was holding like GE and Johnson and Johnson, I think CVS Health. And he had the discipline. This is the key. He had the discipline. Every single paycheck, he told himself, I'm going to put a little bit in the market. Keep buying more. Do not skip months because people can be tempted to skip months. Don't do that. Keep buying more. And there you go. Minimum wage, $8 million. That's compound interest for you.
And that's so good. So yeah, could you imagine Sean having like 1 to 2 million as a 35-year-old?
Right. Like sitting pretty good.
Okay, I'm going to invest in real estate. I'm going to,
Yeah. Yep.
multiply this stuff. So, and that's even like Scott, my good friend and co-founder, Scott Donald. He talked about how the Kerr family, who's one of our 100 legacy families, they would give their kids $1 million, not they wouldn't give them to manage. And if they did 10% or more for the year, they got to keep the earnings. If they didn't get 10% or more for the year, they had to take a year off. And
Mm,
then they get to try again a year from now, right? So what the point of that was that I think the money went to like scholarships or college or something. But
sure.
the point was, hey, learn how to grow money. And
Yeah.
so to your point. So, anyways, all that to say, yeah. So that's the opportunity, right? I mean, like, and here's the reality: kids are doing it, and I'll share our story in a little bit, and we're on the front end of this, but um, the second the second piece of this with parents is like we talked about the bank and mom and dad.
Mhm.
It's open, and it's going to be open until we close it or don't close it. And so, why is this important beyond just compound interest? And so, I'm going to share my screen again here. Um, and this is in our book. So, our Scott and Lee's best-selling book, who's our CEO and my co-founder, Value Creation Kid. You can look it up on Amazon. But this is in the book, and it's the value creation cycle, and then we have the value creation kid matrix. So I'm going to talk about the cycle for a little bit, because again, kids can't invest unless they create value first, right? So how do we create value? And if you're a parent or a grandparent, if you can type this in the chat, and John and I can talk about this. But let's look at the cycle real quick. I'm going to zoom in here, okay?
Yeah.
So the value creation cycle. Uh, what is a healthy struggle that your kids are experiencing today? Okay. Um, this could be they're always asking me for money, or they're complaining about playing football, or they're anxious about something at school or at home, right? So I don't know, Sean, for you, what's popping up?
Well, I have nieces, and their big questions coming to uh, auntie and uncle are extracurricular activities, going places, doing things, for like water parks and mini golf and all that, not huge expenses, but still there's an expense there. That's the big question. But you hit on one there that is becoming more popular with a lot of parents. They don't always plan wisely for, which I get, which is, sports and activities are always more expensive than people would anticipate. Whatever sport, whether it's, it could be soccer, volleyball, swimming, it's not only equipment, but then going to locations and then food. And if there's membership fees or anything, it just keeps adding up, and you're not prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so whatever the healthy struggle might be, and it doesn't have to be money based, but it could be anything. If we will help our kids in these healthy struggles, and we define a healthy struggle as it's safe, so it's not traumatic, right? We're not talking about trauma here. We're talking about a healthy struggle that they need to push through into the next category capability. But it's we're in it with them. And I'll give a quick example of one that we've had this last year. So we moved from Texas to North Carolina. My 8-year-old was had a ton of anxiety, and it was just all the new stuff, moving to a new town, playing with new teammates, played football right when we got here. He was extremely anxious, only played 2 plays the whole season. And he loves football. In fact, the 2 plays he played, he almost scored the first play, actually. And but he was just super anxious. So my wife and I were like, okay, well, what's the healthy struggle he needs to go through? All right, we're going to sign back up for basketball right after football season's over. I'm going to be the coach, and we're just going to let him sit in this healthy struggle until he gets some capability and confidence. So basketball season comes, first practice, he's all in. He's like a new kid. Last game of the season, he's the youngest kid on the team, scored the most points. Fast, then he plays football, comes around again. He plays football and is a quarterback and just thrives. All right.
Hmm.
So that was a healthy struggle. It took some time. He was like, "Oh, I actually am capable." I think he already knew he was capable. He gained some confidence and then created value where he was helping his teammates. He was high fiving his teammates. There's a bunch of emotional value attached to that experience. So, but and then what happens is when kids do that and go through that, they're like, "Oh, I can do this again," and it gets faster and quicker and more efficient. Um, excuse me. This could be helping out the house. This could be starting a business, learning how to earn a dollar. There's all kinds of healthy struggles that kids could go through. And by the way, if you have a healthy struggle that your kids or grandkids are going through, please pop in the chat. I would love to talk. And I don't know if anybody can raise their hand and come on, but I'll keep going. So this next piece is the other piece when it talks about, okay, how do we pass on what we call heritage over inheritance, or making sure that we are raising value creation kids. And so what I want y'all to do real quick, if you're watching this, just mentally, or if you printed this off, again, it's in the chat, put a little X next to where your family currently falls. And again, you could have adult kids, grandkids, doesn't matter, or like nieces and nephews, but where does your family fall? And so the value creation matrix is really confidence on the bottom, capability on the y-axis. So when you have a highly confident kid or adults, because we can fall in this too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a highly capable kid or an adult or person, you get a value creation kid, which is high capability, high confidence. Now, if we slide either way, so you got a kid like John Brooks is very capable, but he had low confidence. He was in the anxious self-doubter quadrant. If you have a highly confident kid, but they're not actually capable, you get an entitled taker, which none of us want. And then obviously, if you have both, you get a lazy victim, where it's not everything's somebody else's fault, but they're not willing to solve the problem. And so what I would encourage you to do is, put a little X to maybe where your family falls, or even where each one of your kids falls. And this is a really great starting point to just see, like, okay, how do I begin to teach my kids to create value? And that starts with understanding where our kids currently are and where we need to work on some things. Any thoughts there, Sean, as you're looking at this? Like, what's popping up for you?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And maybe my perspective from the outside looking in, I don't have kids myself, my wife and I don't, but to find a kid that can get to high capability and high confidence, I imagine that's rare, because a kid is, it's a coming of age journey for every kid, and discovering life and what they're good at. And um, I think maybe you can kind of guide them there. But what are your thoughts there? Is that common to arrive at that top right quadrant?
Well, it takes, there are definitely some kids, and we work with lots of families all over the US and some internationally. There are a lot of kids and parents where the kid is, maybe they're naturally a little more go-getter or extroverted and just
Hmm.
tackle life. So I think that happens. But probably, let me share a couple of stories that might help you see that.
Sure.
So we have one family in Utah, Morgan, the Morgans, and the dad has been working with. They've got, I think, 4 or 5 kids. Been working with a 17-year-old, and they're in this value creation, coaching, and we're doing all this stuff with them. And they go on a camping trip with his brother, the uncle, and all the things that the dad has been, and really a lot of it's asking questions and empowering the kids. It's not pushing stuff on kids. It's actually, asking really good questions, giving kids the really good tools and letting them come up with the answers on their own, because that's the things that stick for kids. So we help parents coach on that stuff. But it was on this camping trip where the 17-year-old finally opened up about what he wanted to do and all the things that the dad was talking. They had been having discussions around the kind of the light bulb went on. And Justin was sharing how like he could not believe the transformation that he was seeing in a 17-year-old, but there was this delayed, it's like planting seeds, right? You plant the seed and you let it grow. You can't dig it up and see, are you growing? And then, the dad's been intentional, but you can't manufacture the stuff. You got to let it grow.
Mm-hmm.
And then another dad in New York City. He's got a 15-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. And it was kind of wheels off parenting, thanking mom and dad's open. And we've only I've been working with him for a few months. His daughter's now paying for all of her cell phone bill. Instead of $60 a day to eat out in the city, he's only giving her $15 a day, and she's paying for the rest. And he's like, my daughter is actually loving this stuff, and she loves the idea of, the more responsibility she has, the more freedom she gets, and it's bringing the father and the daughter, this teenage daughter who was really put off by this stuff when he first introduced it. It's like bringing them together. So it takes intentionality. It takes parents putting a little bit of time and investment into the family bucket. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But any family can do it. If your kid's 25 and out of the house, we have families that have adult kids that are trying to help teach their kids.
Oh yeah.
So it's never too late. So
I love the examples. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm going to skip over this, but these would be 2 questions that you can answer for yourself, because this really will help you connect the dots on why this is important. But the 2 questions are: if you're successful financially and if you're using Tykr, what's that big number, right? That you're like, man, if I made this much money, we would be financially free. But if you made, a lot, millions of dollars, and your kids don't leave home with the ability to create value, what's the cost? So I would challenge and encourage our audience just to write down what your answer to that might be. And then the other question is, if your kids do leave home as value creators, but they actually don't understand their full inherent self-worth, what's the cost? So, one's more of a value creation, a little more material, like they can take care of themselves. The second question is more of their own inherent value and worth that you really can't put money on. So those are 2 questions. Spend some time after this call. And
right.
So any questions there, Sean? And then I can move on to the investing kind of part of this.
No, I'd say go ahead, move on.
Okay. So the last thing, I want to share a quick story. And this is the tool that I think every parent or grandparent can use to literally start investing this afternoon. So there's my oldest, Bear. He bought these tennis shoes the other day with his own money. Nice. And I took the boys out to a little breakfast place, and I was like, okay, we're going to start talking about stocks. We're going to talk about companies. And I was just like, hey guys, it was my 28-year-old, if you were going to invest money in a company today, where would you invest it? Of course, they're like, well, what is investing? They have these questions. And so I thought, okay, what are the places where we spend the most money as a family, right? And you see those two big logos right there. It's Walmart and Costco. Now, of course, since we moved to North Carolina recently, we've been going to Costco a lot more. Every Sunday, after church, we'll just go to Costco. We load up on our groceries for the week, and then we go home, and we'll buy pizza and a hot dog, or whatever else at the food court. And so it led to this really cool conversation. And I was even able to pull up my Tykr app and kind of start to show Bear a little bit about, like, when you're looking at a company, here's some things to look for. But originally, it actually started off as Walmart. So he had made $500 from selling T-shirts in his first business. That's cool. He wanted to invest it because he wants to save for a car. Again, he's 10. And then he was like, and so once we started talking about the places that we go, and by the way, you can also just go to Costco or go to wherever and have this conversation at the business. That's actually, we've had follow-up conversations at Costco I'm like, Bear, how much revenue do you think they generated today? I mean, it's pretty busy on the weekends. But the key is make it real, right? Make it tangible that they can see it and taste it and touch it, all the five senses with whatever stock or company that they frequent. And not that they have to invest in that company, but so he's like, Dad, well, what if I put half into Costco and half into Walmart instead of just all into Walmart? And so he was basically explaining diversification without using the
Yes.
word, which was brilliant. I was like, Bear, do you know what that's called? He's like, what? I was like, it's called diversification. It's like if one stock goes down, you don't get his bad, or if you make a bad choice, whatever, you've got it diversified. So what I would encourage just families, the easy thing to do is just take your kids out to breakfast or lunch or whatever, or take a trip to Walmart or Costco or wherever else you go. I think we went to Shoe Carnival. I don't know if they're publicly traded, but you would know, Sean. But in that picture, and then just start a conversation, and it could be anything about the business. How many customers have they had? Well, if you could invest in this, in this business, would you do it? Right. And that is the easy and best and quickest way to get your kids to invest. And then if they don't have money to invest, that's where it gets fun. It's like, okay, well, how do you think we could make some money? How much you want to invest? Okay, what could we go do or sell or create to make that money? And then the key is doing it with them, right? When my son made his money, like I helped him make the shirts the first time, and be with it in the healthy struggle. Don't do it for them, but be in it with them to kind of get them going. And so, but that's it. It's so much fun. Obviously since we invested, Costco and Walmart have both been up. So it's been fun to be a part of that. So
Um, if you want to stop sharing here, we'll go to touch on what you're working on offline in a little bit. But
yeah.
to dive into how you are doing this, because some people are going to reach out to me. How do you tactically do this? And we're all about being tactical. So did you set up custodial accounts with each child with your broker?
Yeah. So we use Chase right now, just Chase Investing. So
Sure.
we actually just do it through our Chase platform. So what
Got
I did
it.
is I invested in the stock in our investing account, and then in Tykr, I just created a portfolio and added those
For
transactions so we
them.
can keep up with Bears holdings. Yeah.
Got it. So you keep it all under your Chase account, which is
Mhm.
fine. Yep.
And you can create, there's Fidelity, like there are some, teen or kid investment apps that you can invest in,
Yep.
that you can invest through. But we just do it to keep it simple, keep it all in
Yeah.
one place.
Yeah. Yeah. I have heard of platforms that are they're kind of like what would you call like robo traders where you can invest a little bit like you're a kid and they'll automatically invest in index funds. And I think that's fine. But really, you're going another step further and getting them to think like Ronald Reed does, and think like Warren Buffett does, and think like
Right.
Charlie Munger. Don't invest in stocks, invest in businesses. And when you separate them, oh, okay. So like the whole scenario you went through is like you walk in and they're selling food and they're selling, the pizza and the hot dogs, and then they've got grills over here and TVs over here, and they've got all the produce, all the revenue streams under one model, and that makes it tangible for the kid. And then they're thinking, okay, that's a business. That's how they make money.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't mean to poke fun, but some of these investing apps, it's like I'm investing, but you have no idea. Like it says, okay, my returns yesterday were 0.2%, yet you have no idea like where is your money? What kind of business is it in? To me, that's not investing. So it's good to hear you're actually in it, in Chase, and you're in the businesses. You're actually walking through.
Yeah,
So
and it's really about conversations. It's like
yeah,
do you think Costco is going to be around in 10 years? Why or why not?
there you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, yeah,
or so. Yeah, it's got to make it real, make it tangible. And yeah, it's not as much about who you're using necessarily to invest. It's more about understanding the business, but obviously, the 4M and everything is all
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. We might have some time for that to talk about some stocks if people want to. I want to say this. Some people may ask the question to me like, hey, I have kids. How would you tactically do it? What you're doing is an option. You control the money within a bank account. You can kind of disperse it to whatever child you want. The other options are some people throw out like college savings plans or 529s. In that case, I did some homework on that. I think there's a limit on, maybe there's a limit, but I know this, you only can use the money for like tuition. And I don't love that because let's say you're saving with your child or investing between ages, let's say 8 and 18 or whenever they graduate high school. Could be 17 or 18, unless they're a genius and then it's 16. That was not me.
Mhm.
But I do hear scenarios like that. But they get to that age and they're like, you know what? I don't want to go to school. Well, then you're stuck, and I don't know how the money can be moved from there, but I know it's a process. I do find it easier if parents just set up a custodial account so they inherit it in most states in the United States, it's like 18. I think there's a few that might be 21. Around the world, there's something like that. They may still call it custodial, but you oversee the investments. They can log in, they can buy and sell stocks. You create the limitations, depending on the platform, of course. But then they would inherit it at that age and they can use it for school, of course. They can use it for tuition, or let's say they wanted to start a business or start real estate. Like I've got a friend of mine who um, he just turned 21, but I've been friends with him for years. He kind of started following me and he's like, Sean, I'm going to skip school. I started doing homework on real estate investing. I want to do that instead of going. I'm like, dude, that's amazing. So he got into real estate investing early, invest a little bit in the stock market, but skip school, get right to revenue generation mode. And he was like looking back, he's like, man, if I would have been investing at age 10, where I'd be at age 20, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, and I think even, two other things to think about is, I believe Roth IRAs are great because I
yeah,
believe you can use Roth for higher education. So it's a great place to start. Obviously, if you don't use it,
yeah,
you can just keep growing. Um, and then the other thing just to look up on your own is just to see if you invest in a 529, I know experts who say that actually hurts your scholarship score.
yes, yes.
So collegeready.com, I think it's the website. Shelly Howard, she's the expert. So you can look for collegeready.com, I think.
Mhm.
But especially if you're needing scholarships, pay attention to that too, because that could hurt you.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I did read
Yeah.
that if you are looking for it and they find out like, oh, you have a 529, nope, you move into
Which
the
is
disqualified category. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
So
anyways.
good call. No, we covered a lot here on investing with your kids, but there's the high level. Like, do you want to pay for your kids, or do you want your kids paying for stuff they want? And flipping that mindset, the younger they are, the better it is for them, and of course, the better it is for you. I do know people who you probably hear the stories. You mentioned a 20-some-year-olds. I know people are nearing 30 or people who have kids nearing 30 and they're like, yeah, they're still kind of living at home, not sure what to do. And it's like, boy, you better figure it out fast because they are draining your bank account.
Yep. Well, and it's not just, paying for their rent or paying for their, whatever else living expenses. It's all of the potential like relational and emotional toll,
Yeah.
right? That can have a lot of other bad stuff can happen. That also costs money too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Right on. Well, if you guys have any questions, Anise and Princey, I see you in the uh, attendee list here. Any questions? Stocks you want to look at? That's always a hot topic. We'll pause here for a second, and otherwise we'll wrap up. I'm just loading up Tykr here.
yeah, I would love, yeah, I don't know if we were recording about the CrowdStrike. I thought that was interesting. Um,
We could jump into that. In fact, I was going to do another video on that in offline. That'll go to YouTube. I want to just focus on CrowdStrike, but we'll touch on a few here. In fact, since we have this loaded up, and of course, if anybody else on the call wants to throw any stocks in the mix, you mentioned Shoe Carnival. I never looked at
yeah,
this stock before. I didn't realize it was public. I see a 50, so it's just meeting the minimum on the score. Like to see that
Yeah.
over 50, but margin of safety 1%, which if we go to the financials, probably telling us, yeah, that those
Mhm.
profits are not increasing. Interesting. And I see 5-year returns about 190. So that's doubling the market. The market is about 80% over 5 years. So people do like the stock regardless of the financials. No 4N though. Nobody's not popular enough to get that done. Anybody, of course, you can log in, you can do one if you're curious, but let's go to earnings calendar. Let's see how they're doing. I see that a few misses in a row, but then they matched, it looked like, and then they beat by 6%. Now, I never been to this. Is this a retail store, Travis?
So yeah, it's like a big shoe discount store.
Okay.
So when you've got kids, you're going, where do you get shoes? And we tried. There's a few different ones, but this is actually I've been impressed as a shoe store. They've got their stuff together. It's very, but yeah,
Interesting.
it's a few places. Kind of like
Gotcha.
DSW shoes, I think is another popular one.
Now I'll stop sharing here and then I'll go back to sharing again. With apparel, and I've talked about this in another video, some people bring up apparel stocks. I don't always go from Walmart and Target and especially Costco. I could talk about Costco all day in a good light. I put those in a different category because they're monsters with a whole bunch of revenue streams. But apparel, I did invest in Lululemon years ago because the yoga play and the especially going into leisure wear, comfort at home, COVID really, the work at home. People aren't wearing suits and ties. Women especially are wearing yoga pants. It's comfortable.
Mhm.
That was a play there, and I made some money in Lululemon, but otherwise apparel to me is a bit risky. The reason is the moat is narrow. A lot of people
Mhm.
can get into the space. You source a manufacturer out of China or somewhere else, you slap a label on it and off and run, and you're competitive to somebody else. So it's not the biggest moat. So that's my biggest issue. I think you and your family found a really solid brand there where you can save money, you get some quality footwear uh, at a discount. But would I invest in it? Does it really separate itself in any ways? My answer is probably a no.
Yeah, and we didn't invest in Shoe Carnival so everybody could understands.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
I love getting to look at a company like that on Tykr, Sean, because you actually get to see the metrics. Because usually I'm looking at companies that are like, they have a high score and they're making their way towards something I want to buy.
Yeah.
But it is kind of interesting to look at a company like I didn't consider buying Shoe Carnival, but to look at the metrics in a different perspective. Like I'm not
Mhm.
investing in this, but I want to understand the tool better. I love how you just went through Shoe Carnival.
Yeah, I'll hear something and I always have ticker queued up, so I'll jump
Yep.
right to, oh, how are we looking here? And sometimes I'll find a diamond in the rough. Um, Walmart's financials are pretty close to the same in the market. I see they're just beating the market. 80% is S&P, give or take, 87%. But for the long term, I still look at them as a stronger play just because so many revenue streams, global footprint. And they have so many product lines, it's unbelievable. And one thing I noticed or noticed when I did homework on recessions, not saying we're going to into one anytime soon, but when the market does pull back, Walmart typically doesn't take a big hit. I noticed this with 2008. Both Walmart and McDonald's did not take a big hit because it's a lower price, right? It's a cheaper food, cheaper stuff, makes it easier for people to buy. Walmart will always be a staple. Full disclosure, I buy like toothpaste and shampoo and all the staples. I'm not going to spend high price. Like I go to Walmart.
Yep.
Keep it simple. I can pay a higher price for a similar product somewhere else or just go to Walmart.
And
Um,
a great Sean, a great example of Walmart. And this is again a conversation you could have with kids, and we have is like, I don't know if you use their gas app, but for gasoline, but like I'll pull up to an Exxon, and I without fail will use the app because I save 10 cents, and
yeah.
I'm like Walmart is, and that's a conversation. I was like, Brad, did you know that I'm saving 10 cents because Walmart, and like they're making somehow it's a revenue source for them apparently, with some deal with Exxon. But I'm like, so I get to have conversations like, did you know Walmart just helped us pay for gas?
Yeah.
And again, it's a tangible thing. And so, what? Yeah, to your point, there's so many opportunities for things like that. And I see things technology wise that Walmart's doing, which is one of the reasons I invested in Walmart, a long time ago. But
Yeah. It's a long-term safe play. You want to really match, in worse times that you might do all right. It's one of those tried and true. It's a business that's not going anywhere anytime soon. I gotta jump over to Costco. I really like Costco's actually on my short list. Um, as one of my top watch list stocks I may transition to. This is a fun business. I see a 67.73, so higher 4M, 1%, and then the 202. Look at that. The returns they're beating Walmart and what was the shoe retailer?
Shoe Carnival.
Shoe Carnival. Shoe Carnival. Yeah, definitely beating them. I think was the 190. But this business I like so much because the membership play. They they like getting people to join a membership. You're paying that. It's a revenue you're generating without any physical product being sent out or shipped or manufactured. That's a great place to be. And then you entice people to use that membership because they get money back. Like you get that one check at the end of the year or beginning of the next, and here's how much you get back. It's like, all right, I've been waiting to buy that new grill or something you need for the house, and that's been really, really handy. And their products are actually very high quality. The Kirkland brand. I'm a golfer, and even their golf balls are pretty decent.
Hey, the diapers are amazing. you have you got little kids diapers.
Yes.
We're almost out of diapers, but man,
Costco
they make
buying
a good
bulk.
diaper.
Yeah. I'm just taking a quick peek here at their earnings calendar. Yep. So beating on earnings. We'll see about the EPS here. Kind of flat, slight increase, but just a safe play. Like it's not one of those high flying, like we're going to jump to CrowdStrike next, but a tech stock that can really increase revenue without adding liabilities like a lot of payroll or manufacturing something physical. You think about Apple. I really like Apple. I invest in Apple, but they make a money on iPhones and computers and tablets, and it's like it's a thing you have to manufacture. So if you have a revenue stream in your business that's you're making money without anything manufactured or sent, I love that. So Costco is that membership play is great. And you're doing you get the hot dog play. It's like still a buck, right?
Yeah, $1.50,
Dollar
nine
fit.
ninety
Okay.
five pizza.
Yeah. Get families in, not just one person in the family, get the whole family in, get those kids buying, and then they want this and they want that. And I know you're disciplined with your family, so you're not going to walk in and walk out with like, oh, we just bought $100 worth of stuff we don't need. But that is a thing. That is the thing.
Yeah.
People walk out. Stay disciplined. I'm just jumping here.
There's some questions. There's a question about a book recommendation. I dropped our book, Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Value Creation Kid. It's a great book, great place to start. And then he asked about education article for kids on Tykr. Sean, do you want to share real quick so our kids, we homeschool, we're looking at starting a micro school, and we were just going to use the Tykr checklist because that's kind of new, right?
Yeah,
So
we
one of
just
the things
had.
I would recommend is like give your kids what we call at dinner table. We call it the brain gigs. Our app's called Gravy Stack. It's soon going to be changed to the dinner table app. But you can give your kid a brain gig and go into here and do this checklist here, so they can learn how to invest in stocks. So this is really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I talking to customers and I thought, you know what? Maybe we should add a checklist to really get people laser focused on what do you do? Step one, step two, so on and so forth. And you get the little green checks, join the mobile app or web app. What's beautiful is when you join, these first two are already done because you create a watch list and you're already joined the app. So it creates that momentum. You see here, I gotta finish my modules. So I didn't complete those on mobile yet. We don't have the modules on the web app. This is just for context. Duolingo is, I have a lot of respect for them, language learning, and they did mention that you get a much better adoption with learning modules on a mobile device than you do on a web app. So even the founder I listened to him on a podcast, Louis Von On was like, yeah, do it on mobile, don't worry about web. So that's why it's on mobile. And of course, then join your broker. We talked about that. I use Schwab, doesn't matter where you are in the world. There should be a broker you should use. If you're not sure, for you guys watching here, Interactive Brokers is it's got the largest footprint in the world, about 200 countries and territories. So it's always like, if I'm not sure, this is a good one. They're headquartered, I believe, in New York, but they have a global footprint. But anyway, yeah, then you create your portfolio. You got to be buying stocks, right? Like that Warren Buffett style, Ronald Reed, that janitor, every month, and then set your alerts. Make sure you're using those alerts. So if something changes, you do see the daily email, of course, that's by default. Something changes on your watch list, you get notified, but you can be more specific here with alerts. So yeah, that checklist. Glad to hear, Travis, that has helped people get more focus.
Well, the other thing too, Princey asked, he said, I've got a 7-year-old son. Could you please support a suitable investing book for him? And I would, I'm sure there's a lot of good books out there, but I would, one
Hmm.
of the things at dinner table that we do, if you ever seen the cone of learning, like it's basically a visual to show like the things that we read, we only implement like 10%. But at the top, the things that we do and practice and even fail and buy a bad stock, right, where we have to make a decision, those are the things we actually implement as far as real world skills. So I would encourage you, just go download the Gravy Stack app, create some brain gigs, pay your kids 5, $10 to like learn the 4 M's, like learn the tools inside of Tykr. Like just pay them $1 to learn a tool on Tykr, right? And pretty soon they can use it just probably better than most of us parents. Our kids are way more
Hmm.
capable than we ever give them credit for. So, um, but
I
yeah,
see.
I can see if we can find a book. I don't, and because some people too, technology with kids, that's a
Hmm.
big thing with a lot of our parents. We have a printout, so parents whose kids aren't on phones have a printout for to create value of the house.
Sure. Yeah, you mentioned get into Ticker. I think that is a good call. Get to know that a little bit. And I'm thinking for a 7-year-old, would it be exciting? But you never know if you warm it up to it. I guess maybe a kid version of Ticker is got to be on the roadmap. But Anise did ask if you have a book title, please drop it into the
Okay.
chat.
I've got a good friend that wrote a book. I'll try to, if I can remember the name, Anise, I'll drop it in here. And while I'm thinking about that, Sean, I do have a couple other questions around investing, but if we have time, if we don't, keep going.
Yeah, I'd say we'll definitely make some time here because I can roll over a little bit. How are you doing on time? Can you roll past the top of the hour?
Uh, I
You got to keep it tight.
I could probably go a few minutes past. We
Okay.
can keep going.
We'll keep it real short because I'm going to do a separate video on CrowdStrike. We talked about this before. See that. Oh, that was, what am I kidding? It was one of the top search stocks here. CRWD. All right. So yeah, the big pullback here, we all know there was there was a software update and it caused a whole bunch of computers to lock out. Microsoft actually helped get their tech support actually helped themselves and CrowdStrike kind of get out of this. There's a whole bunch of tech details. I was listening to a podcast or watching a video on this. Pretty technical what was going behind the scenes. Somebody who's an actual engineer at Microsoft was breaking it down. I was like, oh boy, I'm technical. This was pretty technical stuff. But anyway, long story short, stuff like this does happen. Breaches do happen, issues do happen. Of course, they're getting a lot of flack in the media. As Travis and I were talking about, is their financials are solid, like on sale, 61 out of 100, margin of safety, 63%. Um, those are all looking good. The keys to pay attention to their next earnings we see are in September. What could happen is, let's say, and if you guys see here, they're beating their earnings estimates every quarter. If they were to, one, beat estimates, and then two, if we go to their earnings, this is a positive sign. We want to see the earnings increasing. This is the number one most important line that businesses look for. If we see this, it's 18 cents. I see the prior was 22. If we see this go to like 20, let's say 23 cents or 25 cents, and they beat estimates, there could be like investors, institutions almost forget what happened and start buying more. Again, stuff like this happens. So it's not the end of the world. There was a little fear over the last week, but I don't see this being a permanent impact on the business by no means.
And I just posted a book for 7-year-olds called The Little Piggy Book. It's a great book by my good friend Jack Arbor,
Oh,
who's a wealth
nice.
manager, and highly recommend that book. And
Cool.
kids can read it. You can read it with them, or they can read it by themselves.
I know that the recording on YouTube won't see um, the book
Yeah,
title,
it's
so I'm just going to share my screen here. Hold on, so people know what it looks like. Yeah, jackarbor.com, This Little Piggy.
yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, thanks for posting that.
The other question, Sean, is for people that are like I rolled my 401 or my old 401k over or IRA 401k into an IRA. So I'm trying to keep cash. I probably have 40% of cash left.
Hmm.
So I've slowly been investing in 10 to 15 stocks. What's your recommendation? Because I know you recommend 20% in cash so you can take advantage of, when things go down. But any thoughts on that, investing it over time as if you start off with all cash and, whether it's valued or I forget the term, but, investing a little bit.
Stockpiling.
Yeah.
There's DCA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. With that, for context, in our training, I do recommend actually go 50-50. So keep 50% in
Nice.
stocks and keep DCAing, dollar cost averaging, do the Ronald Reed play, Warren Buffett, keep buying every month, keep other 50% set aside. Now, I've got about 20%. For context there, my personal income stream was really cut off the last few years. Only reason was every bit of money just used to put right back into Tykr, but we're nearing a point where we might hit profitability and I'm then able to invest again. So I'm at 20%. I want to be higher just in case we have a big pullback. Then you use that, as they say in Wall Street, that dry powder, that available cash to deploy. So you got 40%. You're in a good spot. I'd probably hang on to that 40, keep it
Mm-hmm.
there, set aside in your broker, in Chase in your case. The other, whatever money you're making is just keep, DCAing a little bit every month. Because if we get a market pullback, and for context there, we probably won't see one this year, election years historically, and I'm going to be working on a video on that today, actually. But get this, over the last 100 years, there have only been 4 years that were down, and it wasn't down because of the president. The last one was '08. That was Obama, but that was caused by the housing crash in '08. Prior to that was 2000. That was George W. Bush. Was it caused by George W? Nope. That was the dot-com bubble. Then you go back to 1940, like another 60 years. That was what is it? Franklin D. Roosevelt. That was at the end of the Great Depression, beginning of World War II, 1940. It was really 1939, right? But was it his fault? Nope. Market went down like 7% or 8% or something like that because of Great Depression. And then it was 1932. That was also um, that was depression. That was in hard to the depression. Yeah. But
Right.
anyway, yeah. So this year will be good. 2025, we'll see what happens depending on who gets elected, and that's what I'll raise in my video on. Was it Trump or Harris? We'll find out.
Mm. And I'm assuming, it's kind of like uh, Christmas when it goes down, when you have the extra cash,
Yes.
you see all the scores go way up, right?
Yeah.
And then you pick the best ones, right?
In that case, it's not necessarily the scores will change, but you're right. It is like Christmas because now everything is way
On
down in
sale.
price. It's on sale. And now it's time to attack. And that was like to you guys watching the aha moment of all the books I read through the years was from Phil Town talking about in Rule One investing and excuse me, in payback time when the market goes down, you buy those on sale stocks. He calls it stockpiling. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so simple, but makes sense because it's contrarian to our emotions. Like we want to sell as well. It's like, nope, now is your time to buy. And then the amount of case studies I've heard of people doing that, like during the 2008 recession, and what kind of, for example, a buddy of mine bought Ford, turned 100 grand into 2.5 million in like a year and a half because Ford did not take the bailout, whereas GM and Chrysler did. So he had
Mm-hmm.
enough intuition to be like, oh, if they're not taking the bailout, they must be financially stronger. And he's like, I kind of knew what I'm doing, but I gambled a little. I'm like, you did the right thing, and Tykr probably would have gave that a better rating. But anyway, smart
Yeah.
investing.
Yep.
All right. I know we're top of the hour here, but thanks for your time, Travis. Really appreciate the education here. Where can people, if people want to contact you or learn more, where can they reach out?
Yeah. So the quickest way is just my email, travis@cravestack.com. Shoot me an email if you're interested. Our main website is dinnertable.com, and that can just show you how to get started if your parents or grandparents. If you're a high net worth family or just don't know where to start next, feel free to shoot me an email. That's probably the quickest thing. So,
Cool. And of course, in the YouTube show notes, we'll have all your contact information down below. But thanks for the questions, guys, offline. And if, of course, anybody offline, you're watching this video, reach out to Travis or reach out to myself. We'll be happy to help.
yeah, thanks, Sean.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Travis. We'll see you
Bye bye.
later.